The text message wasn't meant for me. I knew that the moment I saw it light up Jefferson's phone while he was in the shower. Can't wait to see you tomorrow. Kim will never suspect a thing. My heart stopped. I'm Kimberly Mitchell, 32, a high school English teacher in Portland. Jefferson and I had been married for 6 years, and until that moment, I thought we were happy. The warm steam from my morning coffee suddenly felt suffocating as I stared at his phone screen. I set the phone down exactly where I found it and took a deep breath. The bathroom door opened, and Jefferson walked out with a towel around his waist, whistling. His dark hair was still wet, droplets of water running down his chest. "Morning, babe," he said, kissing my forehead casually. "Got any plans for the weekend?" I forced a smile. "Just grading papers. The usual boring stuff." "Cool. I've got that team-building retreat tomorrow. Probably be back Sunday evening." His voice was perfectly normal, betraying nothing. "The one in Seattle?" I asked, sipping my coffee to hide my trembling lips. "Yeah. Whole marketing department is going." Jefferson worked as an advertising executive at Madison Media, a job he loved and talked about constantly. "Sounds fun. Who's going?" I was surprised how steady my voice sounded. Jefferson shrugged, pulling a shirt from the closet. "Just the team. You know, Brad, Lena, Magali, the whole crew." Magali. The name struck me like a slap. Magali Cruz had started working with Jefferson 8 months ago. I'd met her at the company Christmas party, tall, confident, with a laugh that demanded attention. "Need me to pack anything for you?" I offered, watching his face for any reaction. "Nah, I'm good. Just some casual stuff." He checked his watch. "Gotta run. Early meeting." He kissed me goodbye, grabbed his phone without checking it, and left. The house fell silent except for the soft ticking of our kitchen clock. I sat frozen, staring at my half-empty coffee mug. 6 years of marriage, and I'd never once checked Jefferson's phone. We had a rule about privacy that I'd always respected, but the text wasn't a misunderstanding. It was addressed to Jay and signed M, with a heart emoji. My classroom was quiet that day as students worked on their essays. My mind was elsewhere, replaying every late night at the office, every business trip, every time Jefferson had mentioned Magali in passing. How long had it been going on? Weeks. Months. During my lunch break, I called the waterfront hotel in Seattle where the retreat was supposed to be happening. "Hello, I'd like to confirm a reservation for the Madison Media team building event this weekend?" I asked, my voice professional. "I'm sorry, ma'am, we don't have any group bookings under that name for this weekend," the receptionist replied. My stomach dropped. No retreat. No team building. Just another lie. After school, I drove home in a daze. Instead of confronting Jefferson immediately, I needed evidence. Not just for him, but for myself. I couldn't believe the man who'd vowed to love me forever would betray me so casually. I opened my laptop and logged into our phone account. Jefferson and I shared a family plan, and I'd never bothered to check the call details before. Now I pulled up the last 6 months of records. One number appeared consistently: late-night calls, text messages, often when Jefferson told me he was working late. I didn't recognize it, but I had a sinking feeling I knew exactly who it belonged to. I took a screenshot of the records, then closed my laptop. The house felt different now. The photos of us on the wall seemed like they were from another life, another relationship that wasn't built on lies. That evening, when Jefferson called to say he was preparing for the retreat, I played along. "Have fun," I said. "I'll be here grading papers when you get back." "You always are," he replied with a chuckle. "Sometimes I think you're the most boring wife in the world, Kim. But I love you for it." His words cut deeper than he knew. Boring. Is that how he saw me? The reliable, predictable wife who would never suspect her husband was cheating? After we hung up, I made my decision. I wouldn't be the boring, unsuspecting wife anymore. By Monday, Jefferson would regret ever underestimating me. What he didn't know was that I'd already contacted a private investigator who specialized in infidelity cases, and tomorrow, while Jefferson thought I was home grading papers, I would be following his trail straight to Magali's doorstep. Saturday morning dawned bright and clear. I dressed carefully in clothes Jefferson rarely saw me wear: dark jeans, a fitted black sweater, and boots with a slight heel. I pulled my usually loose brown hair into a sleek ponytail and applied makeup with precision. The private investigator, a woman named Diana Rodriguez, called at 9 a.m. "Mrs. Mitchell, your husband left his house 20 minutes ago. He's heading north on Interstate 5, not toward Seattle." "Where is he going?" I asked, grabbing my car keys. "Based on the address you gave me for Magali Cruz, I'd say he's heading to her place in Beaverton." My hands trembled slightly as I started my car. "I'll meet you there." "Mrs. Mitchell, my recommendation is to let me handle the surveillance." "I need to see it with my own eyes," I interrupted. "Please text me the location." The drive to Magali's address took 30 minutes. Diana's discreet black sedan was already parked across the street when I arrived. I pulled up behind her and slid into her passenger seat. "That's your husband's car," she said, pointing to Jefferson's silver Audi parked in the driveway of a modern townhouse. "He arrived 40 minutes ago." I stared at the house, imagining what was happening inside. My stomach churned with a mixture of anger and heartbreak. "Have you done this before?" Diana asked gently. "Confronted a cheating spouse?" I shook my head. "I've never even thought I'd have to." "What's your plan?" "Good question." What was my plan? Storm in and catch them? Silently gather evidence and confront Jefferson later? The pain was too fresh, too raw for clear thinking. "I don't know yet," I admitted. "But I'm not leaving until I have proof." Diana nodded and handed me her camera. "High zoom lens. You can see through the front windows clearly." I raised the camera, adjusting the focus. Through the large living room window, I could see Jefferson and Magali sitting close together on a couch, laughing over glasses of wine. It was barely noon. The sight of them together, so comfortable, so intimate, felt like a physical blow. Magali tossed her long dark hair back as she laughed at something Jefferson said. He looked at her with an expression I hadn't seen in years, pure adoration. "I have enough for the documentation you requested," Diana said quietly. "Photos, timestamps, location verification." "Thank you," I said, still watching through the camera. "But I need more." As if on cue, Jefferson leaned over and kissed Magali deeply. My finger instinctively pressed the camera button, capturing the moment that officially ended any doubt. "I need to hear his voice," I said, reaching for my phone. "Mrs. Mitchell." I dialed Jefferson's number before Diana could finish her warning. Through the camera lens, I watched Jefferson pull away from Magali, frown at his phone, then answer. "Hey, Kimu. Everything okay?" His voice was casual, but I saw him stand up and walk away from Magali. "Just checking when you'll be back from Seattle tomorrow," I said, my voice surprisingly steady. Probably around dinner time. The closing session ends at 3. The lies flowed so easily from him. "That's great. I'm thinking of making your favorite, lasagna." "Sounds perfect." "Look, I gotta go. We're about to start an activity." "Of course," I said. "Enjoy your retreat." I watched through the lens as he ended the call, said something to Magali, and they both laughed. My blood boiled. They were laughing at me. "I've seen enough," I said to Diana, handing back her camera. "I need all the evidence you've collected, and I need a favor." "What kind of favor?" Diana asked cautiously. "I need information on Magali Cruz. Everything you can find, especially her work email and her boss's contact information." Diana raised an eyebrow. "Planning a workplace exposure?" "Planning justice," I corrected. "Jefferson and Magali work for the same company. There's an ethics clause in their contracts about workplace relationships." I drove home in a cold rage, Diana's file of evidence on the seat beside me. The woman had been thorough. Photos, location data, even a recording of Jefferson and Magali discussing their plans for the weekend. At home, I poured myself a glass of wine and opened my laptop. Madison Media's website listed their executive team, including the Vice President of Human Resources, Eleanor Bennett. I had her email address now. Next, I logged into our joint bank account. Jefferson had always handled our finances, claiming he was better with numbers. Now I understood why. He didn't want me seeing the trail of hotel charges, expensive restaurant bills, and gift purchases that had nothing to do with me. I took screenshots of everything, downloading statements from the past year. Then I checked our credit card accounts and found more evidence. A charge from a jewelry store 2 weeks ago for an amount that made my eyes widen. No gift had come my way. By evening, I had compiled a comprehensive file of Jefferson's betrayal. The financial records, the phone logs, Diana's photographs and recordings. It was overwhelming to see the double life he'd been living laid out so clearly. I created a new email account under a name Jefferson wouldn't recognize. Then I began drafting 3 separate emails, one to Jefferson, one to Magali, and one to Eleanor Bennett in HR. As I worked, my phone buzzed with a text from Jefferson. "Missing you. Can't wait to see you tomorrow night." I didn't respond. The Jefferson I thought I knew, the man I had married, no longer existed. In his place was a stranger who could lie to my face without hesitation. I finished the emails but didn't send them. Tomorrow would be soon enough. I wanted Jefferson to have one more night of believing he was smarter than me. One more night of thinking he'd gotten away with it. I slept in our guest room that night, unable to bear the thought of our bed. Before turning out the light, I took off my wedding ring and placed it on the nightstand. 6 years of promises, tarnished beyond repair. What Jefferson didn't realize as he spent the night with his mistress was that I had been methodically documenting every aspect of their affair. And by tomorrow evening, both their personal and professional lives would implode in ways they couldn't imagine. Sunday morning, I woke with purpose. I made coffee, showered, and dressed in my favorite outfit. A deep blue dress Jefferson had once said brought out my eyes. I wanted to look my best for what was coming. I checked my phone. A text from Jefferson. Heading home around 5. Retreat was great but exhausting. Can't wait for that lasagna. I didn't bother making lasagna. Instead, I spent the day finalizing my plan. First, I called my sister Rachel in Chicago. "I need a favor," I said after explaining the situation. "Can I stay with you for a while?" "Of course," Rachel said without hesitation. "What about your job?" "I already emailed my principal. I have 3 weeks of unused personal leave." "Kim, I'm so sorry this is happening. I never liked Jefferson." I laughed bitterly. Should have listened to you. After the call, I packed 2 suitcases with everything I couldn't bear to leave behind. Clothes, important documents, and sentimental items that had nothing to do with Jefferson. I booked a flight to Chicago for the following morning. Then I prepared the house. I removed all my personal photos from the walls, but left the wedding pictures up as a reminder of his broken vows. I gathered Jefferson's expensive watches from our bedroom and placed them in a neat row on the dining table. At 3 p.m., I sent the first email to Eleanor Bennett at Madison Media HR. Subject: Ethical Violation Report, Jefferson Mitchell and Magali Cruz. Ms. Bennett, I regret to inform you of an inappropriate relationship between Jefferson Mitchell, Marketing Director, and Magali Cruz, Marketing Associate. This relationship violates Madison Media's ethics policy regarding supervisor/subordinate relationships. Attached are photographs, communications, and expense records documenting their affair, which has been conducted during company time and using company resources. I am bringing this to your attention as Jefferson's wife, Kimberly Mitchell. Respectfully, Kimberly Mitchell. I attached selected photos and financial records, then hit send. The second email went to Magali. Magali, by now, you know I'm aware of your relationship with my husband. What you may not know is that Jefferson has been lying to both of us. While he told me he loves you and plans to leave me, his financial records tell a different story. He's been seeing someone else besides both of us. I've attached hotel receipts from dates when he claimed to be working late, but wasn't with you. I've also included screenshots of text messages between him and a woman named Vanessa. I'm leaving him. He's all yours, along with his lies. Kimberly. This email was a calculated risk. There was no Vanessa, but Jefferson had been secretive enough about his phone that I suspected Magali didn't have complete access to it. The seed of doubt might be enough to crack their united front. At 4:30 p.m., Jefferson texted that he was 30 minutes away. I positioned myself at the dining room table, Diana's folder of evidence spread out before me. The watches gleamed under the overhead light. The Rolex I'd given him for our anniversary. The Tag Heuer he'd bought himself last year. And the new Omega I suspected was for impressing Magali. I heard his key in the lock at 5:12 p.m. The door opened and Jefferson called out, "Honey, I'm home." His footsteps paused in the hallway. He must have noticed the missing photos. Kim. His voice held a note of confusion as he entered the dining room and froze. I looked up calmly, meeting his eyes. "Welcome home, Jefferson." His gaze darted from my face to the evidence spread across the table, then to his watches lined up like exhibits. "What's all this?" he asked, forcing a laugh that didn't reach his eyes. "You tell me." I pushed a photo toward him, one of him kissing Magali outside her townhouse. "How was Seattle?" The color drained from his face. "Kim, I can explain. Save it." My voice was ice. "I know everything. The affair with Magali, the lies, the money you've spent on her." Jefferson's expression shifted from shock to calculation. "It's not what you think. It's just a workplace flirtation that got out of hand. It doesn't mean anything." "Really? Because you told her I was the most boring wife in the world. That seems meaningful." He flinched. "You heard that." "I heard everything. I saw everything." I gestured to the photos, including your little weekend getaway at Magali's while you were supposedly in Seattle. Jefferson's shoulders slumped. He pulled out a chair and sat down. "Okay. Yes. I've been seeing Magali. But it's not serious, Kim. It's just excitement, adventure, something your boring wife couldn't give you." His silence was answer enough. "How long?" I asked. 6 months, he admitted. 6 months. Half a year of lies. I'd suspected it was longer than a few weeks, but hearing him say it still hurt. "Do you love her?" Jefferson hesitated. "I thought I might. But it's complicated." "It's about to get more complicated," I said, sliding my phone toward him. "I emailed Eleanor Bennett at HR an hour ago. I included proof that you've been using company time and resources to conduct your affair with a direct report." His face paled. "You what?" "Kim, that's my career. You should have thought about that before you charged hotel rooms and jewelry on our joint credit card." Jefferson ran his hands through his hair. "You don't understand what you've done. I could lose my job." "I understand perfectly," I said, standing up. "And yes, you probably will lose your job. Just like I've lost my husband." "Where are you going?" he demanded as I walked toward the door. "Away from you. I'm staying at Rachel's starting tomorrow." "You can't just leave. Watch me." I turned back to face him. "Oh, and I sent Magali an interesting email too. She might have questions about a woman named Vanessa." Confusion crossed his face. "Vanessa? There's no Vanessa." I smiled coldly. "I know that. But Magali doesn't." The look of dawning horror on Jefferson's face was almost satisfying. "Almost. You've ruined everything," he said, his voice breaking. "No, Jefferson. You did that all by yourself." As I walked out, my phone buzzed with an email notification. Eleanor Bennett had responded. "Mrs. Mitchell, thank you for this information. I've scheduled an emergency meeting with our legal team for first thing tomorrow morning." Jefferson's phone began ringing. The caller ID showed Magali. I left him to deal with the consequences of his actions. What Jefferson didn't realize as his world began crumbling around him was that I had already contacted a divorce lawyer who specialized in cases involving infidelity, and the financial records I'd gathered would ensure I received everything I deserved in the settlement. Monday morning, my alarm went off at 6 a.m. I had barely slept, but adrenaline kept me moving. My flight to Chicago was at noon, giving me time for one more important meeting. At 8:30 a.m., I arrived at the offices of Hartman and Associates, where I'd scheduled an appointment with Patricia Hartman, one of the city's top divorce attorneys. "Mrs. Mitchell," Patricia greeted me. "I've reviewed the documents you emailed yesterday. You've been very thorough." "Thank you. I wanted to be prepared." Patricia nodded approvingly. "Most clients come in emotional and disorganized. You've given me everything I need to start proceedings immediately." For the next hour, we discussed strategy. Given the evidence of Jefferson's infidelity and financial misconduct, Patricia was confident we could secure a favorable settlement. "There's something else you should know," I said, pulling out additional bank statements. I discovered Jefferson has been siphoning money from our joint accounts into a private account for the past year. Nearly $50,000. Patricia's eyebrows rose. This changes things. This isn't just infidelity, it's financial fraud against a spouse. The judge won't look kindly on that. After signing the necessary paperwork, I left Patricia's office feeling lighter. The process was underway, and Jefferson wouldn't know what hit him. My phone had been buzzing all morning with texts from Jefferson. 7:15 a.m. Kim, please call me. We need to talk. 8:03 a.m. Eleanor from HR called. I have a meeting at 9. Please tell me you'll retract your email. 9:47 a.m. I've been suspended pending investigation. Are you happy now? 10:22 a.m. Magali won't speak to me. What did you tell her? I ignored them all. As my Uber approached the airport, I received an unexpected call from Diana, the private investigator. Mrs. Mitchell, I thought you should know. Jefferson Mitchell has been escorted from Madison Media's offices. Security walked him out carrying a box of personal items. Thank you for letting me know, I said, surprised by how little I felt. No sadness, no vindication, just a calm certainty that justice was being served. There's something else, Diana continued. After our meeting, I did some additional background work on Magali Cruz. Standard procedure. I found something interesting. What kind of something? She's done this before. At her previous employer, she had a relationship with her married supervisor. He ended up divorced, and she was promoted shortly after. The pieces clicked together. Magali wasn't just having an affair with Jefferson. She was systematically sleeping her way up the corporate ladder. I'm sending you the documentation now, Diana said. It might be useful for your divorce proceedings. Send it to this email address, I said, giving her Patricia Hartman's contact information. My lawyer will know what to do with it. At the airport, I checked in for my flight and found a quiet corner in the terminal to make one last call. Madison Media, how may I direct your call? The receptionist answered. Eleanor Bennett in HR, please. After a brief hold, Eleanor's crisp voice came on the line. Eleanor Bennett speaking. Ms. Bennett, this is Kimberly Mitchell. I'm following up on the information I sent yesterday. Mrs. Mitchell. Yes. I want to assure you we're taking this matter very seriously. Mr. Mitchell has been suspended, and Ms. Cruz is also under investigation. I appreciate that. I wanted to inform you that my private investigator discovered Ms. Cruz was involved in a similar situation at her previous employer. I've forwarded that information to your email. Eleanor's sharp intake of breath was audible. Thank you for this additional context. I believe in transparency, Ms. Bennett. I thought you should have all the facts. After hanging up, I silenced my phone and prepared to board my flight. Jefferson could deal with the wreckage of his life without me. As I settled into my seat on the plane, I opened the notebook where I'd been keeping track of my new life plans. Chicago with Rachel was just temporary. I had savings Jefferson didn't know about, enough to rent my own place and start fresh. I'd already applied for teaching positions at several Chicago high schools. My principal had promised an excellent recommendation, understanding my need to leave Portland behind. The plane took off, and I watched the city shrink beneath me. 6 years of my life there, now ending. But unlike Jefferson, who had thrown away our marriage for fleeting excitement, I was moving towards something better. My phone buzzed one last time before I turned it off completely, a text from Jefferson. The divorce papers arrived. Is this really what you want? I typed my final response. It's not what I wanted. It's what you chose. Then I turned off my phone, closed my eyes, and let the distance grow between my old life and whatever waited ahead. What Jefferson would soon discover, as he faced unemployment, reputation damage, and a divorce that would drain half his assets, was that I'd seized control of our shared investment portfolio the day before leaving, transferring it to an account only I could access, completely legally, thanks to the documentation of his financial infidelity. 3 months passed in Chicago. Winter melted into spring, bringing new beginnings that mirrored my own. I'd secured a position teaching English at Lakeside Academy, a respected private school. The principal had been impressed by my credentials and enthusiasm. offering me a salary higher than what I'd earned in Portland. Rachel had been my rock through everything. Her spare bedroom became my sanctuary until I found a charming apartment near the lake. On weekends, we explored the city, creating new memories to replace the painful ones I'd left behind. Patricia Hartman, my divorce attorney, called with regular updates. Jefferson had initially tried to fight the divorce terms, claiming I was being vindictive. He changed his tune when we presented evidence of his financial misconduct, Patricia informed me. The judge was particularly interested in the private account he'd been hiding. What happens now? I asked. He's agreed to our terms. The house will be sold, and you'll receive 60% of the proceeds plus half of all remaining assets. His lawyer knows they don't have a leg to stand on. The divorce was finalized faster than I'd expected. Jefferson's desperate attempts to salvage his reputation and career had taken priority over fighting me in court. Diana, the private investigator who had become something of a friend, occasionally sent updates from Portland. Madison Media had fired both Jefferson and Magali after their investigation confirmed the ethics violations. Magali had quickly moved to another city, but Jefferson was struggling to find comparable employment. Word gets around in advertising circles, Diana told me. His professional reputation is in tatters. I felt no pleasure in his downfall, only a sense that the scales had balanced. The man who had called me the most boring wife in the world was learning that boring had its advantages, like integrity, stability, and resilience. My new life was anything but boring. I joined a local writing group, finally pursuing the creative passion I'd set aside during my marriage. I started hiking on weekends, exploring forest preserves around Chicago. I made new friends who knew nothing of my past, who saw me as I truly was. One evening in June, as I was grading final exams in my apartment, my phone rang with an unfamiliar Portland number. Hello. I answered cautiously. Kim, it's Jefferson. My heart jumped, but not with longing, with surprise that he would contact me after everything. What do you want, Jefferson? My voice was steady. He sounded different, humbled. I wanted to apologize. For everything. What I did to you was unforgivable. Yes, it was, I agreed. I lost everything, Kim. My job, my reputation. Magali left as soon as things got difficult. He gave a bitter laugh. Turns out I was just another rung on her ladder. I'm aware of her history, I said. Silence stretched between us. I heard you're teaching at a private school now, he finally said. In Chicago. I am. Are you happy? The question caught me off guard with its sincerity. I looked around my new apartment, at the manuscript pages scattered on my desk, at the hiking boots by the door. Yes, Jefferson. I'm very happy. I'm glad, he said softly. You deserve to be. After we hung up, I stood at my window, looking out at Lake Michigan glittering in the distance. Jefferson's call had stirred no desire to reconnect, no lingering attachment. It had simply confirmed what I already knew, that I had moved on, completely and irrevocably. The divorce settlement had provided financial security, but the real wealth was in what I'd discovered about myself. I wasn't boring, I was grounded. I wasn't passive, I was strategic. When tested by betrayal, I had risen with dignity and strength. The next morning, I woke early and walked to the lake, watching the sunrise paint the water gold. My phone buzzed with a text from Rachel. Dinner tonight? New Thai place open downtown. Absolutely, I replied. And I have news. My short story got accepted for publication. As I continued my walk, I thought about the narrative of my life. How Jefferson had tried to make me a secondary character in his story. The boring wife who stayed home grading papers while he lived a double life of excitement and passion. But this was my story now. I was the protagonist, the one who had faced betrayal and emerged stronger. The one who was living authentically while he dealt with the consequences of his deception. I no longer defined myself as Jefferson's ex-wife, the woman who had been cheated on, the teacher with the predictable life. I was Kimberly Mitchell, author, educator, adventurer, the main character in a life that was just beginning. And there was nothing boring about that. In the end, what Jefferson never understood was that being called the most boring wife in the world had become my greatest strength, because while he sought excitement in lies and betrayal, I found true fulfillment in honesty, courage, and the quiet confidence of knowing exactly who I was. 1 year after leaving Portland, I published my first collection of short stories, The Most Boring Wife, a title I'd reclaimed as a badge of honor. The book received critical acclaim for its honest portrayal of betrayal and rebirth. When asked in interviews about my inspiration, I simply said I'd learned that sometimes the most interesting stories come from the places we least expect. Jefferson eventually moved to a smaller city and took a job at a boutique agency, his career a shadow of what it once was. Magali, I heard, had tried the same tactic at another company but was quickly exposed. Sometimes justice arrives in its own time. As for me, I welcomed each new day with gratitude and excitement, knowing that the woman Jefferson had underestimated now lived a life more vibrant and authentic than he could ever imagine.
And that wraps up today's story. Now we want to hear from you. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments, and let's see how far these stories reach. If this story moved you or gave you chills, give it a like, share, and subscribe for more powerful stories. One last thing, rate the story from 1 to 10 in the comments. Your feedback helps us bring you even better ones next time. Thanks for watching. We appreciate you being part of this storytelling journey.